We continue to talk about Kelly Oubre's departure, but who's going to replace him? And if Brandon Miller does, then what do we expect from him in his rookie season? We'll also discuss the sophomore season all today on Locked On Hornets.
This is Shuman from Whittington, North Carolina. You are Locked On Hornets, your daily podcast on the Charlotte Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, Cook. We live.
All right, we're rolling with Shuman still. Yes, he's becoming the voice of Locked On Hornets. We are outsourcing our work, and we are going to hold on to that for at least a week. It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We appreciate you making us your first listen every single day. That is Nata Edwards on YouTube. You can follow us there as well. Producer of the critically acclaimed Eye On College Basketball Podcast. You can also follow him on Twitter at Nata the Scribe. Nata, we get to go at it this week like you and Doug did last week. How you doing?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm doing all right. I didn't realize that we were starting to outsource the intros.
We are.
I could have come up with something. No one called me. So I'm just not going to try and take my feelings are a little bit hurt. But at this point, you know what? It's okay. It's cool. Y'all didn't want me on this. It's all right. I understand.
Does it hurt your feelings that we asked literally anybody out there and then
except for me,
and the text did not find you at all?
Yeah. I'm kind of hurt. Not gonna lie. Kind of hurt.
It puts it into perspective when a lot of other people knew except you. I apologize for that. You know, the fact that literally everybody that listens to the show probably knew and you didn't. So I apologize. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on Sports Radio 92.7 WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3. All right, now we do have some content to get to, though. It's a couple days later from the news breaking, but Kelly Oubre, as I mentioned yesterday, we got some closure. Kelly Oubre not going to be coming back to the Charlotte Hornets officially. He signs a 1-year vet minimum deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. I did want to get your thoughts on it. The first thing I wanted to ask, though, is, was there ever a point as this thing continued to drag on and on and on where even in mid-September, he did not have a landing spot yet? Did you ever think that he might come back to the Charlotte Hornets?
I did, honestly. At some point, the calendar got to July, and I was like, okay, Kelly's going to find himself a mid-level deal. And this is going to be one of those things where it's like the smart, he just goes out somewhere smart. Okay, cool. Then it got to August, and I'm like, okay, maybe, again, he get there's roster spots. The roster's at 13 because PJ hadn't signed yet. Okay, cool. Maybe bring him back because, you can never have enough wings with Gordon Hayward and a whole bunch of the other injury-prone guys. Okay, cool. And then it got to September and PJ signed. And then it was like, why not bring him back? Let's be real here. Let's just bring him back. And then it got to the point where he signed with Philadelphia, and I was just like, you know what? Why? I get it from this point, but I guess after at some point when he's going to be a vet minimum contract, you kind of you have to make at least the overture. Now we don't know if this was a Bismack Biyombo situation where there was an offer and Kelly just wanted to go somewhere where he could win. We don't know that particular part of this, but at the same point, I do think that after about September 1st, there should have been a legitimate offer out there to be like, hey, look, we value your skill set here. We understand what you do, and we're probably going to need somebody. And I just remember that he could have shut it down a bunch of times last season. He didn't. He kept playing until they basically had to keep him from hurting himself further, hurting their draft odds, and it was like no more. But I think stuff like that goes unnoticed sometimes, and after a certain point, you kind of have to reward that in some instances.
No, and that's the thing that we valued a lot from last year, that he could have shut it down and he didn't. And let's be clear, with some of my criticisms that I've had during Kelly Oubre's time, the fact that you could get him on a vet minimum, which I think on that kind of contract, Nata, there's not a lot of expectations. Exactly. I mean, you're coming in on a contract that's quite literally the least you could make if you have served X amount of time in the NBA. So even if Kelly wants to do something more, you can't be expected to do something more. It's not like we're paying you to go out there and be the big time scorer. This is what it came down to. And Philly decided to give him that, a team that, despite all the drama that surrounds them every single year, every single offseason, at least Kelly is going to have that opportunity as a guy off the bench or starting if James Harden is very serious about him and not doing anything for Daryl Morey. Yeah, Daryl Morey-led team. So Kelly's going to have his opportunity. And I know we talked about this a lot. I know you would talk about it on Twitter. The fact that Kelly wanted to come back, I wonder how much that waned and how much that changed from Kelly's perspective after they draft Brandon, after they're bringing PJ back, after Miles Bridges comes back after his suspension, which, to be fair, it's not like Kelly didn't have a role when Miles was on the team. But now you have a bunch of different mouths to feed at that wing spot. So if Kelly wants to start, which he has talked about a decent amount in his past, and he wanted to be here, but he also wants opportunity, it just didn't seem like this would be something even Kelly wanted in the long run. Nata, what do you think?
I see. That's the thing, though. Like, after a certain point, you could want what you want. Like, it wasn't going to happen out there in the landscape. It was very clear. Like, at some
even
point,
with Philly, you don't think he gets what he wants in Philly?
No, I don't. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to get a nice bench role. I hope he gets all the shots he wants. I have concern. I think it's a good role for him, but I don't think Nick Nurse is the right coach for him, quite honestly. Like, there's a lot of this where this can go sideways. And sometimes it's better to deal with the devil, and devil, and I've used devil in obviously a very, very jokingly term, but
Cliff it's a safe space. I wasn't going to kill you for that.
Yeah, but like, quite honestly, but the thing is, like, I guess where I'm at with the whole thing is Cliff was going to get mad if you didn't play defense, but he wasn't going to basically exile you from the roster. Nick Nurse can do that and probably will do that by Christmas, if we're honest about this. So I do understand that, and it's part of the reason I'm surprised he didn't just go to Phoenix. And maybe Phoenix wasn't interested, maybe something along the lines of that. But at the same point, like, quite honestly, like this, like, I understand why he went to Philly, but I'm just surprised that Philly was quite literally the only option.
Yeah, it kind of came down to that. Yeah, unless there were some other teams that weren't as good as Philadelphia that maybe was willing to offer a little bit more than the vet minimum, but he didn't want to go there. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like this was about
like Miami feels like the obvious one too.
Well,
like that's the other thing.
Yeah, and that was reported at least. And the reports, and I forget who it was. I apologize. You mentioned that at the time. But anybody that was talking about Miami, it seemed to be married to when they land Damian Lillard, they would go after Kelly, which kind of weird. You think, okay, you can go out of order. You could sign Kelly, especially if it's a vet minimum.
Vet minimum, yeah.
Yeah. So it didn't make sense there as far as if it had to be married to Damian Lillard. But eventually he decides to go to Philadelphia, and the Hornets are left to replace him. Now, that's the question. Is there a rookie that is outright going to be the sole guy that gets those minutes? Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Will this be a collective effort? Will it be Brandon Miller stepping into that spot Kelly Oubre leaves behind? We'll get to that in just a moment, but not before I talk about Jace Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's Jace, Jase, jacemedical.com. Promo code LOCKEDON. More Locked On Hornets coming up next.
Is Locked On Hornets.
I think you guys are kind of being a little hard because they're in. They are again, and this is me trying to be Mr. Positivity, which is really not my role. But
This is the turntables have definitely turned here. This is this is absolutely not your role. And in fact, I think leaving this podcast has turned you into a completely different person when it comes to the Charlotte Hornets.
Man.
So what I'm saying is, I think we should discredit whatever you're about to say even before you say it. Go ahead.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, Nata, let's dig in a little bit more to what Kelly Oubre leaves behind and who is going to pick up what he leaves behind. Brandon Miller is the choice that I think you go with. Anybody that did not expect Kelly to come back, it was, I think, in part because Brandon Miller was selected number 2 overall. I wonder how different that is if they select Scoot Henderson, more of a backcourt player. You're not having somebody in the front court right there where Kelly is, and I know Kelly could play a couple different spots, so could Brandon. But I wonder if Brandon Miller now, because he's that second overall selection, because he is someone that you're hoping is a foundation piece for the Charlotte Hornets team for quite some time, if he steps in pretty immediately. Now, to me, I don't know if that means playing over 30 minutes a game like Kelly did last year. He started 40 out of the 48 that he played, a lot of that because of injury, but started a lot, played over 30 minutes, a lot of that due to injury as well. But does Brandon come in, give you over 20, like 25, and play in the same kind of role that Kelly did with emphasizing some of the benefits of his skill set? What do you expect Brandon to do in place of Kelly?
I expect kind of similar results with a few more assists. I think the floor game for Brandon Miller is going to be a lot better than people expect. I think we talked about it a lot. I talked about it last week with Doug. Like, there's the Hedo Turkoglu 2016 Nick Batum type skill set with Brandon Miller, dude, even with the lack of strength right now, where I think he's going to be really, really good. He's a guy that Cliff really loves. And I think as long as Brandon Miller at least attempts to play defense, he's going to be just fine. I think he's going to step into the role. I think also, I don't think he's going to be alone. I think there's going to be other guys that this role is going to go to. I think, like, there's a part of me that thinks Cody Martin, like, we're not talking enough about it. Now, granted, a lot of that is due to the knee injury, but I think Cody Martin has a chance to step in there. I think, depending on how this goes, Nick Smith might have an opportunity to do something. And then on top of that, we can't forget about Bryce McGowens, who did step in late last season, did some decent things, and as long as he improves the jumper, I think he can step into the Kelly Oubre role. I'm not saying Kelly is replaceable, but I'm saying there's enough talent there, enough potential to where it doesn't necessarily have to just rely on Brandon Miller to fill those shoes.
Oh, no, and I think you're probably right. I don't know if you're just saying, all right, Brandon, you're in there. But Kelly 2 years ago played 26 minutes per game. That's when we had the first half going crazy, shooting from 3. And then second half, he was not hitting at all and became...
he was on a milk carton.
He became tough to play. Yeah, James Borrego decided to sit him quite a bit in the last half of that season. And then last year, we all know what it is. I did want to go through a couple of stats, though, with Kelly. So there are a couple of good and bad. The one is the lack of assist. We got to that yesterday. We've talked about it quite a bit. Andy Bailey put out a tweet yesterday. The second day this week, we've gone to Andy Bailey, by the way. But he put out a tweet, a list of 10 players, a list of actually a lot more than that, of players with field goal attempts per assist opportunity last season. And what that means is that these guys took this many shots before they even took advantage of an assist opportunity. Okay. Kelly Oubre was third on that list behind Michael Porter Jr. and Chris Boucher. Now, funny enough, Nick Richards is 7, Mark Williams is 10, but they're centers. It's not really that big of a deal when you're right. Exactly.
Let's get the ball on the dunker spot, dunk the ball. That's kind of different.
Exactly. Yeah. And so even if there are 3 Hornets on this list, 2 of them really don't matter with them being big guys. But Kelly, I think that in my point in bringing this up, Brandon Miller's not going to be on that list. I don't think so. I mean, Brandon, one thing that I really liked from him in college was that he was a very good passer. I think his vision is very good. And I think in a LaMelo type of comparison, even though he's not the passer LaMelo is, don't know if anybody is in the NBA except for a couple players, but in a similar vein, Brandon can see over the defense with how tall he is. And so if you're out there on the perimeter, then I don't know if there's a pass he can't make. And only as soon as as he gets to understand the game, we've talked about how he does have a high basketball IQ. If the turnovers come, it might be because he's trying to fit a pass in there somewhere. But you said what?
He's trying, if he's trying to do too much, I could see the absolutely.
Right. I do think that's going to be something interesting. And the catch and shoot numbers for Kelly Oubre weren't good last year. He would take them, but they weren't great. In fact, if you look at catch and shoot threes, he only shot 32.3%. I don't think Brandon, even in his rookie season, is going to be that bad, Nata.
Nope.
I mean,
nope.
I'm not going to use it as an indictment that, oh, great, it's a bust. He's not shooting 35, and this is the guy that was built as the shooter, because we know that can sometimes take a little while, even if you were very good. But I think he's going to be better in catch and shoot opportunities. Is he going to get them? This is the path, right? I think there is a path for Brandon to contribute his rookie season in a pretty big way, while also not asking him to do a whole lot. There are some nice fit things here with Brandon Miller.
It's not just the fit; it's the skill set. Like, this guy has everything in terms of being an offensive conduit for bench role, for quite literally everything. Like, this dude is going to come in, be a top 7 rotation guy. And yes, I'm saying he's going to be a top 7 rotation guy with Cliff out of the box, because quite literally he can shoot, he can pass. I mean, Walker, I just go back to the Summer League game, and granted, Summer League shouldn't mean all that much, but at the same point, I'm just going to go back to the Summer League game with the 7 assists against the Warriors. That dude was trying to facilitate, and he was their best quote-unquote point guard facilitator on that roster.
Yeah, he was their best passer.
Yeah, like, he was their guy. He was the best guy in terms of facilitating. Got 7 assists when basically the Warriors were like, okay, we're just going to double it. We're going to double him. And what did he do? He got 7 assists on a team that really couldn't finish. I don't worry about this with Brandon Miller. Again, he's going to be fine. I would consider it an absolute disappointment if he's not all rookie NBA first team at this point in like 8-9 months. That's how good, and that's how much I believe in him at this point now.
And especially because they're not asking him to do a ton, right? Catch and shoot threes. Kelly Oubre got opportunities, but he struggled hitting them. I think Brandon will get opportunities and not struggle as much to hit them. I do think when he gets the basketball, there is an ability somewhat to maybe put at least one dribble down and then look elsewhere to see if he can bring the defense in and then kick out. He's got that kind of ability. Last thing, this is something he will not be doing. So when it comes to the unassisted rim field goal attempts from Kelly Oubre, he was in the 91st percentile in unassisted rim field goal attempts. Brandon is not going to be going to the goal like that. That's just not
not for 2 years. Not for 2 years.
I don't even. And hell, I don't even know if ever. And that's not an indictment on Brandon. It's just that's the kind of player Kelly was. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to get to the basket, and this ball ain't coming back out. Or if I get this ball and I don't decide to drive, I'm going ahead and let that thing fly. With Brandon Miller, there's a lot more of, hey, I have options in everything I do to his game, right? So he'll never be in the 91st percentile in rim field goal attempts per game. And that's both. I think that's just Kelly's role. I don't even think that's bad. I tweeted it out a million times.
You need that guy. Again, you need that guy on the wall sometimes where it's just, yo, I have no conscience. We got to spark some things. There are a lot of games that Kelly Oubre won. Now, granted, it was early in the season for probably both of those where he would just shoot with no conscience and spark something. And you need that guy. I do want to preface this. You need that guy. At the same time, you probably need somebody that can make the killer pass as well on that second unit. That's where Brandon Miller lies in there.
Yeah, you want that from somebody that's not your number 2 overall pick, right? Yeah. But valuable. And again, I tweeted it a million times. Kelly Oubre driving to the basket, that was good Kelly, because he was good at it. And especially, this was more 2 years ago where I got so frustrated. It's like, Kelly, when you drive, man, you're hitting, you're athletic, you're strong enough to finish. You get an attitude down there, which I absolutely love. A team that might be void of attitude at times. loved driving Kelly Oubre. And then I think you saw a lot more of that last season. So those things are going to be missed. When he decided to go to the rim and you couldn't stop him, that will be missed. But that is the difference in what you get from Brandon and Kelly. And again, we're ignoring Gordon Hayward still being in the front court, right? Miles Bridges still being in the front court.
Back, yep.
Right. So like those guys are coming back in. I just wonder, where Brandon can make an impact. I think some of the stuff Kelly leaves behind, Brandon can pick that up and utilize them in different ways to the point where you and I both feel pretty damn good about how he can contribute his rookie season. And that's a very exciting thing.
Yeah, exactly. It makes everything from the draft show on. I think we're going to feel a lot better about this guy. It's going to end up being the PJ Washington selection, which I know some of us really, really ended up loving going forward. So I do think that I do think that Brandon Miller brings a lot to where Kelly leaving, it made Kelly a luxury, doesn't make it a necessity so much. So there's a lot. I'm excited to see what this kid can do because there's already kind of like whispers and rumors that he's doing a lot in these camps and these workouts already. Yeah. Be excited, folks. Be excited. Yeah. Be very excited.
Even PJ joined Kyle Bailey, said that was something that stood out to him, his work ethic. So hopefully it continues on and he's able to contribute this year in a big way. All right, we talked a lot about a rookie season. What about a sophomore season? Let's get to that. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Speaking of foundation players for the Charlotte Hornets, Brandon Miller being one, what about the first-round pick from a couple of years ago, Mark Williams? How much do we expect him to step up this season? We'll get to that in just a moment, but not before I talk about FanDuel. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, even more than that. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Mark Williams combo coming up next. Locked On Hornets. All right, Nata, something weird just happened. It was very Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp-esque. Because when we came back, I was caught in the middle of asking Doug, who's running stuff behind the scenes. He is with us in spirit. He's a ghost with us. I was thinking about asking him if it's okay to just start the segment, and then I decided that I was going to. And in the process, I called you Doug.
Yeah.
I called you Skip. Skip. That's what I did.
I've been first taked. I never thought I would. From you of all people, Walker.
I know.
It's not like we haven't done a show together for like a year and change. Nope, not at all. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think I probably called Doug Nata a couple of times when I would go to him and kick the conversation to him. And now I'm bringing you that same energy. And Doug even stopped me because there's no way. It's like, hey, Walker, you called him Doug. Like, let's do a take two. So I apologize. I first taked you. You deserve better. We deserve to put you on the intro. You deserve to have your actual name. That's what we should refer you to you as. And so I apologize for all the mistakes.
Appreciate that.
We have brought onto you. It's funny though. So I'm
hilarious.
Apologetic. All right, let's get to this sophomore season with Mark Williams. So if you look at ESPN's latest write-up, they have a panel of writers all discussing the NBA sophomores who need to step up in 2023 and 2024. If you go to Tim McMahon's excerpt, he says it's Mark Williams. And he says this, quote, Mark Williams made the Hornets' decision to trade Mason Plumlee at the deadline look wise. The deal was done to open up the starting job for Williams, and he responded, averaging just under 12 points, just under 10 rebounds, and a little over 1 block the rest of the season. He shot 63% from the floor, despite point guard LaMelo Ball missing the last 6 weeks. And then he talks about how Mark Williams will never be a primary offensive option, but he oozes potential as a lob-catching pick-and-roll partner who rebounds and protects the rim. This one people are going to love. Ask Miami Heat star Bam Adebayo. Williams had 18 points and 20 rebounds in a February 25th win over the Miami Heat. Yeah, high on Mark Williams. Absolutely love him. This is the center everybody's been asking for. Really showed a lot of potential. people are tired of hearing this take from me, but it does not matter what level of basketball you go to. The guy has improved at the end of every single section you go, right? Freshman year, sophomore year at Duke, summer league, preseason, regular season. It doesn't matter. It's funny. He is the case against improvement is not on an escalator. He is he fights that notion.
Hold on.
He is the outlier.
Before
he
you
fights
go
that.
there, because again, everyone's gonna use this against you, and I feel the need to protect you on this one.
Yeah.
He is the outlier in terms of
yes.
progress is not linear. Progress is very linear with him. That said, I do want to bring this up because I think when we start hyping these guys up, that hand injury, the fact that hand injury took him out of summer league, took him out of summer workouts. What do we know about summer? Summer is where you add stuff to the bag. It's where you you just add a whole bunch of tools, get a lot of strength. I think I need to pump the brakes on this one because I think with that injury, not being able to work out, not being able to do certain things until probably about last month or so, I kind of worry that he's not going to have that jump in progression that everybody says. Now, mind you, it might come late, but for right now, I would probably caution against it. I think he's going to be very good. I think he's going to do very similar things, but that lack of summer work, man, that when people start having that, not having that, that's when you start seeing the stagnation in certain games. And I think at this juncture in his career, I think it may end up hurting him long term than we like to admit.
No, it's not a bad point because Steve Clifford brings up how important summers are for young players. So I get that. I go to something that Rick Bonnell would talk about, the late, great Rick Bonnell, in regards to Cody Zeller, who got injured a lot. We know how it was with Cody Zeller. And he talked about the difference between a upper body injury and a lower body injury, where if you suffer an upper body injury, then you can continue to stay in condition and actually participate in team drills, even if it's limited, right? The NFL, injury report will tell you limited. So Mark Williams, to me, I think you might be right in the fact that he's not going to expand his offensive game a ton. I don't
specifically the 3-point shot.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's where I think the hand injury will come into play, where maybe it limited him in that capacity. But defensively, right, understanding where he's supposed to be, he's already a very smart player. You talk about they don't teach 9'9" standing reaches and 7'1" height. So that's not going to go away. The agility, you're hoping that can even be worked on because it's not a lower body injury. So that's why I'm still high on Mark Williams. And what we're asking from him, I don't think is so crazy. It's fine to bring back expectations a little bit to earth. I totally understand that. You don't want to put so much on to the point where they can't reach it. But I don't think that's happening with Mark. I could see that happening with guys that you want to be the franchise player, like a Brandon Miller, right? Like a first year for Brandon. If you think he should be averaging 20 points, then you're already setting him up for failure. But with Mark, I'm asking him to average somewhat what he did last year. Give me 11, give me 12, be the lob threat, continue to protect the rim. I want to see him utilize his jump shot more, and I think that's more team-based than it is Mark just deciding not to shoot those jump shots. And you don't even have to stretch all the way out to the 3 to be really effective. Yes, it'll be great if he picks that up, but when you have that 15-foot pick and pop, I mean, he's got that ability right now. So that's why I'm excited about what Mark Williams can do, and I do expect him to really be in that conversation with a Walker Kessler and Jalen Duren this year a little more, because he's going to have a full season. Hopefully, knock on wood, barring any injury, he's going to have a full season, and that is not something he experienced last year.
Can I be honest? I already think he's better than Duren. Like, let's be real here. Duren got a lot of minutes on a very bad team, and if someone's going to point out that the Hornets weren't any better, and I understand that. But there's a ceiling to what Duren can do, I believe. Quite honestly, I do think that the lack of standing reach, I do think that the lack of height is going to be something that Duren experiences. And again, I didn't mean to get into this, but I do think that him being up there with Walker Kessler is a very real possibility. It's not the leap that you would think he would take. And I do think that that hand injury is something I do, like, again, it's the one thing I do worry about with him. But I do think that he's going to take steps. I do think that him and Cliff getting in the lab together and talking about defenses, we're going to have a guy now, since like for the first time since probably Marvin Williams, that's going to be that backline guy that's going to call out defenses. It was PJ for a long time. I think that transition goes to Mark Williams this season. There are a lot of expectations. I want to tamp down the hype on the offensive side. Defensively, I think the sky's the limit. Offensively, limits the sky at this point.
Nata, you cannot come on this podcast, try to limit expectations, and then say he's better than Jalen Duren. What have you done? You have now gone in a complete cycle where if he's not better than Jalen this year, now we're setting him up for expectations to possibly fail.
You know what? Here's the thing. I'm tired of the Jalen Duren stuff. And so that came from
Is that still there as much though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, very much so.
Well, because I love Jalen Duren too in the draft process. Loved him. I wanted him to pick him. But also I remember being very clear that Mark Williams wasn't a consolation prize. Like there's a very real chance that he becomes better than Jalen. And my point about all those three centers that we're talking about, two of them, I don't know who's going to be the best. I'm not sure. Walker was last year. Jalen Duren had the most opportunity and was good. I thought he was good. And Mark Williams was good once he got onto the NBA court. My point is, it seems like nationally, everybody went with, Kessler, he's going to be the best by far. Everybody's catching up to him. Jalen Duren is second. And Mark just wasn't even talked about at all. I like seeing Tim McMahon bring him up on this sophomore needs to step up list. And I think an entire season's worth of work, hopefully playing alongside LaMelo, because the lob threat, that connection is going to be fantastic. I expect it to. I just think anybody that tried to make a declaration on this player is going to be the best center out of those three, I don't think you can do that because Mark Williams is also here, and I'm glad that he's getting the attention, and I think he's going to get more attention this upcoming season.
Oh, he's absolutely going to get more attention, but I think Mark Williams at this point is now the he's the craft beer. He's like the super hipster craft beer. Like he's the selection of the NBA. Like Tim McMahon putting him on there is almost a validation of his hipster status. So think of the most hipster beer that you can think of, and think of a basketball player. That's Mark Williams right now.
It reminds me of when I got on Kendrick Lamar before Section 80 came out. And it's the only rapper that I beat to the masses. And I was sitting there I knew Kendrick Lamar before Section 80. I knew Kendrick Lamar way before you guys did. And then he blew up. Good Kid, Mad City came out. And now everybody knows about him. Is this going to be the year that Mark Williams releases Section 80 and then even afterwards he releases Good Kid, Mad City? That's what I'm guessing. I don't know. But I'm going to sit here being that hipster.
Let's be very, very clear. If Mark Williams' season this year is Section 80, then you have a franchise pillar. Like he's he's a franchise pillar. Like no question about this at this point. Like if he drops Section 80, like we're talking about a completely different expectation. And I will say this: they're a playoff team if he does a Section 80 season this year.
All right. Yeah. We have both simultaneously said, hey, let's temper expectations while also blowing them out of proportion. And I expect nothing less from this duo. That's Nata Edwards, the great Nata Edwards. Find him especially during college basketball season. He is doing a great job with two voices that in the podverse might be the voices of college basketball. Gary Parrish, Matt Norlander. Nata's making it all go behind the scenes. Eye On CBB Podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Nata the Scribe. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me every weekday on Sports Radio 92.7 WFNZ from 12 to 3 p.m. It was fun, Nata. Always fun, man. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Next time we'll talk about your jelly choices.
We have to. We have to get my jelly choices clown. Yeah. All right. Thanks for making us your first listen. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.